Today we're looking at a very exciting game between Liquid and Nigma from the ESL1 in Birmingham, and in particular we're going to look at qojqva's Arc Warden, why you shouldn't buy Midas or Boots of Travel on Arc Warden, and we're going to look at how to effectively and safely split push.
Lessons that cannot be unlearned.
Welcome to the qojqva. So, he's laning against a Viper here, but he doesn't necessarily know that because Nigma has sort of picked a lineup of basically 3 mid laners. So they're going to have a lot of power in the mid game with Viper, Queen of Pain and Death Prophet. Whereas Liquid's lineup is stronger in the late game, with Arc Warden obviously being one of the strongest late game heroes. And then they have these 2 other cores, Brewmaster and Dragon Knight, who are stronger at fighting early and who can create space for Arc Warden. So Arc Warden, even though he's in the mid lane, is the real carry here, he's the real position 1. Laning against Viper is never easy, he's one of the best lane dominators in the game, but as Arc Warden you're actually kind of okay against him, because you have a lot of range, you can sort of stay back, and it's difficult for the Viper to really run you down when you have your tower nearby. And you can also, what he's going to do here is going to get a level of magnetic field here in this lane, which is great against the Viper, because Viper wants to get multiple poison stacks onto you, and then you take a lot of damage, and then when he does that you can just protect yourself with magnetic field and just retreat to your tower and be safe. So in most matchups you want to get magnetic field much later, but against Viper it's fine to just get it. Here you're going to see him skill it up in a couple of seconds. So he's kind of in trouble. He has 2 poison attack stacks already on him, but now with the field he's safe, and Viper has to retreat here, and he's going to be fine. So you just play this lane fairly passively, try to use your Spark Rays to secure range creeps, and just try to keep up in the last hitting. And Viper's actually not that good at last hitting. He's very strong at harassing, but his last hitting is actually lacking. So even though qojqva had to play quite carefully and quite defensively, he's still roughly in ground with only a couple of last hits behind that Viper. But now Viper picks up a double damage rune, and qojqva can't prevent that. So what qojqva is going to do instead is he's just going to take this creep wave. He's going to take the creep wave away from Viper, just going to bring it here behind his tower, and GH trying to come here to maybe disrupt this, but he's too late. So hit this again when they go up the stairs so that they don't lose aggro, and now he's just going to have this creep wave, perfect position here behind the tower, and the fact that Viper now has double damage doesn't matter. He's still going to have to last hit here under the tower or something like that, and you can just get all the last hits without any problem. And GH is going to try to get some experience here, but that's not really a big problem here. You got all the farm you needed, and now the double damage is run out. Action runes are about to come up, so you're going to try to check for those, maybe see if you can get another double damage, something like that, but instead he finds a haste. So he's going to use this to rotate up top real quick. He's just hit level 6, he's actually quite strong with his Tempest double and he can do a lot of damage. He's going to come up here to find someone. He finds GH here, and GH bowls away here, but qojqva is back here, and he's going to be run down by qojqva. So they get that kill, and now he's just going to TP back into the mid lane so he doesn't lose too many creeps here. So nice little rotation here, just because he found the haste rune. If you don't find the haste rune, you definitely don't rotate up, because you don't want to miss farm in mid. Right now Grimstroke comes in, and with the Tempest double available, they actually do a lot of damage here. They kill a Viper, they also lose the Grimstroke here, but that's okay, still a good trade. And just once you have that Tempest double up, it can actually do a lot of damage. You just basically double the DPS of your hero. And then you see one of the problems of Arc Warden. He just doesn't farm very fast innately. Of course you have your Tempest double that's going to double your farming speed basically when it's up, but it doesn't have that much uptime at level 1 because it has 60 seconds cooldown and 80 seconds duration. So some of downtime where you don't have this Tempest double available, and during the time you're going to farm really slowly. Right now a fight is brewing at the bottom lane. Viper has rotated there, so you'll see Panda using his ultimate So what do you do here as Arc Warden? Do you TP down there? Do you just stay here, push the lane? Do you TP down just your clone? What is the best move here to make in this situation? Well, the answer according to qojqva is to just TP down with the clone, stay in the mid lane. This bottom lane is the dead lane. You don't want to push here, you don't want to fight here necessarily, so you just don't want to come down here, but you can still send your clone. But unfortunately qojqva's lack of thread switching kind of catches up with him here, and he doesn't have enough mana to cast another spark with, which might have gotten him a kill on the Venge. But as it is, they only get the kill in the mid laner, but that's of course still a major contribution here. So because he didn't TP his own hero down there, he still is in the mid lane, and he can gain all the farm, all the safe farm, and not have to sort of wait around awkwardly here and trying to walk back to the mid lane or something like that. So after pushing in that lane, he can take this illusion rune, and with that he's going to rotate to top. So if you look at this item build, he's gotten double wraith bands and then treads, and with these items he's actually quite strong at this stage of the game with his tempest double available. So he's going to rotate to top and he's going to try to secure this tower, which is quite an important tower, and also a tower that's fairly easy to take. So they wrap around here on mind control. Mind control has kind of had a bad lane and he's trying to catch up here, but no catching up is going to happen right now. He's going to get killed, and now they can get that tower kill. But Tread is just a really efficient item. You can go for that in the early game, and it makes you much stronger at fighting. It really speeds up your farm because it gives you so much damage and attack speed. And if qojqva were Tread switching here, we would also have more efficient mana use, but you're going to see in this entire game qojqva is really bad about Tread switching here. Not sure exactly why, but just doesn't seem to do it here in this game. So in the past you could just split push and defend your high ground for 30 minutes, and then when you finish farming you can join your team. But in the current patch that approach no longer really works. There's just so many important objectives on the map. You have the bounty runes, you have the neutral items, you have Roshan of course, who now drops all these extra items with the successive Roshan spawns, and then of course you also have these outposts, so you can't really afford to lose map control in the mid game. So it's just important not to go for this old Midas into Boots of Travel kind of build that just farms for 30 minutes before you can really contribute anything to your team. But with these kind of items you're actually quite strong even at this stage of the game, and you can sort of try to defend this tower. You're still of course not the strongest hero at this stage of the game, you're still more of a late game hero, but with this build you can fight if you have to, and you can help out your team defend towers like this one. But you have to be very careful, you're still quite squishy, so he goes too far forward and gets killed because of that. So that's why you see players these days go for treads over Boots of Travel, they're skipping Midas, and they're either going for Necro 1 or they're just going straight into Mjolnir. And the thing about Arc Warden is even if you're not going Midas, you're still a very strong late game carry. You still want to scale into the late game, you still need farming items, and Mjolnir just fulfills that function really well. It's an item that gives you a decent number of damage output in team fights as well, and it just really speeds up your farm, and you're not really farming all that much slower with the Mjolnir just because you have so much good wave clear potential, and that also allows you to actually farm a bit more safely than you would with a Midas, because if you go for Midas and Boots of Travel, it's going to be a lot more difficult to actually push out waves. You're going to have to stay in the waves for longer, which means you're going to be visible for longer, and there's more chances for your opponents to gank you. But even with this more aggressive approach, you still want to spend most of the early game, most of the early mid game farming. You want to have your other cores pick up more aggressive items that allow them to fight faster, create some space for you. You see our DK and our Brewmaster have both picked up Blink Daggers, and they're then just going straight into BKB, so these two cores, they're not really allowed to have any fun. Arc Warden is the only one who gets to have fun. and they just have to buy these items and allow them to fight early and create space for Arc Warden. The thing about Arc Warden is that he's a very fragile hero. He has no escape mechanism, so you have to be quite careful with how you're playing the map, and you always want to send your clone to take the dangerous farm, as in the mid lane here, and then your hero takes the safer farm. And also in terms of positioning, he's actually never in this entire game been to the bot lane. He's basically just playing like this part of the map. This is where he's been for the entire game, and he doesn't really show up here in the bot lane until later into the game. So now a fight is brewing here. He could have just walked from up here, which would have been just as fast, but that would have been not safe. He would have been on his own and could have been picked off, and he just sees the fight is not going well, so he's just backing off and not actually joining the fight. But you can see he's ready to join fights when they break out. So if this fight had gone better at the start, he would have joined in there, but since it didn't, he's just going to split push here. He's going to send out the clone here in this mid lane, which was as close to where the enemy heroes are, and he's going to farm in a much safer position here with his main hero, and this way he at least gets something done while they're rushing. Almost gets a kill on GH here, but not quite. And now he shows up in the bottom lane for the first time, because he just saw the enemy team rushing. He knows that this is fairly safe, but even so he's playing it very carefully. He's only taking this one wave, and now he's taking the ancients here, and then he's just sending the Arc Warden clone here down towards this wave and trying to push it out a bit further. So this stage of the game, he's just split pushing. He wants to avoid fights because the enemy team has the Aegis, so he's just taking this dangerous farm with his clone and then the safer farm with his main hero, and just trying not to get ganked. And at this stage of the game, it's actually probably farming faster with this build than he would with the old Midas Boots of Travel, because now he can actually clear those waves quite quickly, whereas with the Midas build he would struggle and it would take a long time. It would generate more gold maybe, but it's also just important to be able to push out those waves and split push. This is also a way you can create space for your team. Whereas with Midas you only create farm for yourself, you're not helping out your map position in any way. Boxy has just seen some enemies nearby, and he sees his haste rune now. He's just going to blink in here, go for a very cheeky play, but unfortunately he gets used and engaged. And at this point I think he should just try to run away with this BKB, but instead he's going to fight this out, and his team is going to come in. They're going to try to rescue this fight, and as Arc Warden you have to be very careful. If you stay far back, because the enemy can still just roll into you, and GH actually managed to kick him into the enemy team, and he dies. And this kind of fight kind of nicely illustrates why he's going for Hurricane Pike as his next item. There's so many ways that the enemy can get on top of you. You have this Vengeful Spirit and this Earth Spirit who can relocate you in some way and put you out of position. You have that Viper with his Nanotoxin, all his slows, and you need to be able to get away from the Death Prophet with her Spirit Siphon with the ultimate. So just having this mobility of Hurricane Pike is very, very strong in this game, and that's why he's going for that as second item. And now the enemy team are sieging the high ground, and they're going to try to take this melee Rex, but Dragon Knight is quite strong with his Blink Dagger and his BKB, so they can come in here and save those Rexes. And now qojqva also respawned. He's going to come and TP there very boldly, and they're going to take out the Death Prophet and thwart that high ground push. So a couple of minutes later, qojqva is still split pushing. He thinks he's kind of playing it safe, he's staying out of vision, but unbeknownst to him, there's actually a observer ward here from Nigma, and they see everything. And there's not really a ward you would expect to be there at this stage of the game, but it is. It spots out Arc Warden, and now he's going to be ganked, and he's going to try to maybe play his way out of this, but it's going to be really hard against this Earth Spirit. He's going to try to go for the kill here. If you can't escape, might maybe get a turnaround kill here, but it's not quite going to work out, although it is very close. As you can see, some of the strength of Arc Warden, even though he's outnumbered heavily, he still almost managed to get a kill here. So right after this kill, Nigma going to the Roshan pit and try to do Roshan, which Liquid realize, but they don't want to buyback on this Arc Warden. Actually only now has enough gold for buyback, and now it's only 30 seconds left, so it wouldn't really make sense for him to buyback. But they still want to fight this, so they go in there, and with all these very strong strength cores here, they can fight this decently well, even though they're man down. So they get the buyback here from Kuro, so now the fight is basically over, but they only lost the one hero, so this is actually fine for them. This is actually a decent exchange, and they even got the Roshan kill, and they also got the cheese, which was eaten in that fight as well. So this was actually a pretty decent exchange, pretty even, and considering the circumstances, that's about the best you can hope for. And Box is once again in trouble. He's caught out here by several heroes, and Liquid sort of try to maybe help him, but they don't really want to fight here. They want to fight in this Aegis, so they can leave him on his own, which I think is smart. And he tries to escape to the top. He's going to run here, but eventually they are going to catch up to him, and he's going to die, but that is a lot of space here. And of course qojqva is using that space to push out waves. He's using his double here to farm the mid lane, which is always quite dangerous to push out. And because he has Mjolnir, because he also used the active here, he's able to actually get 2 waves here with a single double, which you would never be able to do if you didn't have Mjolnir. So he sees a bunch of heroes top, he sees all the heroes top, so now he can safely push out this wave. But he still has to be careful. He still can't just blindly push out this wave, so he actually goes back here and is going to use his clone to push out this wave. Even though he sees a lot of heroes here, if just one hero is already waiting for him here and initiates on him, like the Earth Spirits, and then more heroes TP back to the tier 1, he could be in big trouble. So he has to be very, very careful with how he's going to do the split pushing. So he's just going to send back a clone here to the top lane, and he's going to defend that tower and sort of force the enemy to retreat, because you don't really want to go high ground against an Arc Warden if he's alive and no one else is dead on the team. So they're going to be very careful here, and qojqva also being cautious and not showing himself yet. He wants to see some more heroes before he feels safe enough to actually hit those creeps. So he's seen a bunch of heroes here, still waiting, but now he sort of commits the clone forward here, and his own hero is still staying back. And so even if someone TPs down here, he's going to see that he can back off in time. And he also, of course, has a Dragon Knight nearby, so if it's just the Earth Spirit, for example, Dragon Knight can just blink in, stun him, and probably get that kill. But no one is coming down here, and the enemy are actually pushing high ground now at top, so he has to return here, and he's going to use his bubble to protect that tower as long as possible. But of course the bubble doesn't do very much against Deathclaw with an ultimate. So they fight this, but notice how far back he's staying. Always staying as far back as he can while still being able to hit here. And he wants his clone to always be farther forward, and his main hero to stay back. He wants to protect that main hero at all costs. And like if the enemy want to dive in there, they can, and they can probably get that kill. But then they would be completely out of position, and even if they do manage to get the kill on Arc Warden, they're also going to pay with their lives. So it's not so much about making it impossible for the enemy to kill you, but more it's about making it too costly for them to come in onto you. And that's sort of your job as Arc Warden, as well as any of these glass cannon kind of ranged heroes like Sniper and things like that. It's all about just positioning yourself far back so the enemy would have to overcommit to actually kill you. So after this one fight, Liquid have actually no intention of going high ground. They're just going to push out all the waves. They want to play for the late game and actually even find a Queen of Pain here and get another kill here, so that's great. So maybe we can take some of these tier 2 towers, but they're not really looking to go hard on any one lane. So just farm as much as possible by farming all the waves here. Boxy get another farm here, as well as of course qojqva in the mid lane. And they're also going to take at least this one tower, but the other towers are not going to be as easy. So, but that's okay. You don't need to finish the game right now. You don't need to get anything huge. You just want to get as much as you safely can and not overcommit here. So qojqva's third item is a Daedalus, and there's basically like 3 major damage items you can go for after Mjolnir. There's Daedalus, there's MKB, and there is Bloodthorn. So MKB, of course, you go with that if there's evasion in the enemy team, which here there isn't. And then a Bloodthorn is nice and all, but there's just so many BKBs on the enemy team that it doesn't really pay off too much to have a Bloodthorn here. So that of course leaves Daedalus, which is a very efficient damage item and just really strong item to have on Arc Warden. So lanes are pushing fairly well, and Liquid are able to go for a smoke gang as 5, trying to see if they can find someone or at least get down some vision. And they find this Viper and they manage to burst him down before he can get off BKB and Satanic. So now a fight develops, and once again you're trying to stay as far back as possible, but against this GH Earth Spirit with a BKB is very difficult. So GH essentially solo kills the Arc Warden here, and but still, what we talked about earlier, it's about making your opponents overcommit here. And yes, sure, you got the Arc Warden, but they also committed really deep for that fight, and now they're still going to lose that fight even though they killed the Arc Warden. And GH even bought back for this, but he is going to die once again, and so that's a hugely won fight here for Liquid, and they now take a decisive net worth lead. They force out some buybacks, so that's why they're hitting this Rax. They already got 1 buyback here from the Death Prophet, but they want more. We see another buyback coming out of that Queen of Pain from Miracle, and also of course the Viper respawning. So now Dragon Knight is going to sacrifice himself. He's actually going to run back here to force the enemy to stay here. If you run in this direction, they can chase you in the same direction as your teammates are running. If you run like this, they have to stay here, because otherwise you can still get out maybe. So this great play here by Dragon Knight, just sacrificing himself so that his teammates can escape safely. So after this humiliating death at the hand of GH, he decided he needs to buy a BKB, which is certainly the correct choice here. Although it should be noted that there's still a bunch of stuff here that goes through BKB, notably the Viper ultimate, which does full damage and full slow during the BKB. So that's something to keep in mind, and also a reason why I didn't go for BKB earlier. But now he kind of needs it, and BKB is actually a great item on Arc Warden. Also just allows you to do much more robust split pushing with your clone, because your clone of course also gets BKB. And as long as you have a long duration BKB, you can still just use it on your clone and just sort of always have that 10-second BKB on your clone. Although of course if you need it for your main hero to keep it safe, obviously you need to use it. But BKB a great item of course on pretty much any carry kind of hero, but an Arc Warden in particular, it's quite strong in this game. So it picks up the haste rune on the clone, which is something that you can do. So qojqva is just sort of securing this area around the Roshan pit. He's putting down spark rays everywhere to control this area and prepare for a Rosh attempt. And with level 3 Tempest double, you actually don't have that much downtime. You have 26-second duration and 40-second cooldown, so that's only 14 seconds of downtime. So many of these spark rays are still here, and now with this area secured, they're going for what they believe is a very safe Roshan here, and it's just going to use the Tempest double here inside the pit and just keep his hero outside in a very safe position. However, when you turn on the all vision, they've been seeing this all along with a very great ward placement here, and they get the jump here on Arc Warden, swap him out, but thanks to his BKB and Hurricane Pike, he gets to escape to the high ground, but he still dies. But of course, again, that means they have to deeply commit here, and now his teammates can maybe salvage this fight, and they get kills on important core here that's a dieback, and kill and vengeful. She bites back here, so a very chaotic fight here, which Viper is going to be eventually killed here, even though he has a satanic. But yeah, Liquid are going to win this fight sort of marginally. They have 2 heroes alive and 1 hero on the enemy side, but they didn't use any buybacks, whereas Kuro bought back on his avenge, so definitely a win here for Liquid. And one of the advantages of dying early in a fight means that you respawn faster. So he's back online, whereas the cores on the enemy team still have to wait for another couple of seconds. So they just go right back into Roshan. Roshan is currently at about 2/3 HP, and with Arc Warden now coming in here and using his clone, it's going to go really quickly, especially with the bubble. That's a bit of a miss 4-star use here, but they get the Rosh. They also have now an Aghanim's Blessing, which is of course huge, and they're going to give that to Rubik. So this third Roshan is just so powerful. It just gives so many items with that Aghanim's Blessing that now Liquid are in a big net worth lead. So with that big lead, they want to look for a fight and put that Aegis to good use. Meanwhile, though, the clone is pushing up mid lane, and Boxy is found here, and this kind of lead is actually a bit deceptive. If you look at the net worth here, it's the difference is mostly in the 3 to 5 position here, where Liquid just have much more, especially with that Aghanim's Blessing, which is another 6k gold here on Rubik. So the supports are much richer here on Liquid, but you see some very efficient itemization coming out of the supports from Nigma. So even though they're behind 18-19k, they're doing really well in this fight, and Arc Warden is not really getting that much done. He just has to run kind of from these BKB cores, and he doesn't actually do that much damage against the BKB targets, because he's not gonna be able to use that magic damage from Mjolnir. His Spark Rays and Flux not gonna do anything, so he kind of has to retreat in this fight, and sees the writing on the wall and just tries to get out of here. He still has the Aegis, of course, but if you die here, you're gonna die twice, so you need to get out. And only now, of course, getting that clone back. So you only have those 14 seconds of downtime with your level 3 Tempest double, but during those 14 seconds, you actually, this 25k net worth Arc Warden is really only as strong as like a 15k net worth hero. So even though he's very farmed, he didn't really contribute much to that fight, and Liquid lose some of their big lead here. qojqva just bought out for a Satanic, which he can afford to do because he has Aegis, but of course he has to be careful now not to die, because then they might easily lose their high ground. But as it is, they can still make use of this Aegis, and they run into the enemy here. Boxy initiates the fight, and with this BKB he's not going to be able to be killed easily. They jump onto qojqva, but with his Satanic he survives for a surprisingly long amount of time, and although they eventually manage to get him down, they committed so much onto him that his team can easily clear up everything, and now that he's respawned, he can rejoin the fight, and this fight is just going to go really well for our Liquid boys. And then based on this one fight, they of course can just push into the middle lane, push high ground, and they're going to take 2 lanes of Raxus here. Boxy creating some space here with his pandas, and they get out without any sort of losses. So now Liquid in a commanding lead here in this game. Let's talk a little bit about talents. Arc Warden is one of those heroes where basically every talent has some sort of use. There's never any sort of clear choice which talent you should take. So level 10 kind of depends on your item build. If you go for Necrobook or Heaven Forfend, you go for Midas. You probably want to go for the cooldown reduction, which is also a very strong talent. But if you go for this straight Mjolnir build, you probably want the attack speed. And then level 15, both these talents are kind of weak, but I guess the health one is usually better. And then level 20 and level 25, you can either go for the two Spark Wraith talents, so it's sort of a pair, or you go for the other two ones. And the Spark Wraith one I think has slightly higher potential. If you use those Spark Wraiths correctly, it can be very, very strong, and in particular these two talents combined are very strong at sort of setting up for a fight. You can put on all these very strong Spark Wraiths and those do so much damage, and that's especially strong if you're fighting over objectives and you're statically in a particular position for a longer period of time, like if you're pushing high ground, or your high ground is being pushed, or you're fighting over Roche. Then those Spark Wraith cooldown talents and Spark Wraith damage talents are really, really strong. But in more like fights on open terrain, probably the other two talents are a bit stronger. Extra attack range and lifesteal is quite nice, obviously. So right now they're just going to siege this high ground. They're not really strong enough to sort of safely go high ground, so they're just sieging here, and they're just going to send in that Arc Warden double and those Brewmaster Brewlings over and over again, and they're just going to bash their head into this 45 position. And of course, on the Nigma side, they only have these objectives left to defend. They only have that one lane left, which just means that they're going to concentrate all their defenses here, and it's going to be very difficult to actually get up here. So the next couple of minutes, we're just going to see this over and over again. Arc Warden and Brewmaster just trying to get as much damage onto these objectives as possible, but Nigma are going to defend, and there's just a lot of static fighting here, and also some fighting over Roshan, but this is a very long game and I don't want to turn this into an hour-long video, so you're going to skip forward in time a little bit here. All the way to 69 minutes, we see that Roshan is just respawned, and our Dragon Knight has spotted this with his courier. That's a very smart place to put your courier to see when Roshan respawns. And during all the split pushing, they almost managed to get the melee racks, but not quite, and of course they got the ranged racks and the tower. So now they see immediately that Roshan is being taken, but they're still kind of late to the party, and they had this Brewmaster who just had to buy back now, even though he doesn't have very much time left here. So they're trying to engage here, but it's difficult. They come too late for the Roshan, and they're actually Tiger Snatch Stages, so nicely done here. Of course, with the Black Dragon, they're quite strong, but Arc Warden is kind of in an awkward position here. He doesn't quite manage to get the right 4-stuff here. Also, his G still in the backpack, so they die here, and he has buyback available, but he doesn't have TP on cooldown, so he kind of doesn't want to use it now. But I feel like this is a mistake. I feel like you should be buying back now. Should be immediately trying to defend this tower with the main hero, and then maybe TP up with the clone and force the enemy to come back, or take their last racks. But instead he's going to wait, hold on to his buyback, and just hope that the enemy can't push fast enough. And in the meantime, we see Panda creating some havoc in the bottom lane, trying to do some split pushing, but of course not easy, with 3 of your heroes being dead. And of course this is the ultra late game. You have all these crazy tier 5 items, the Seer Stone here, we have the Mirror Shield, and most deadly of all, we have the Stygian Desolator, 75 damage and 10 armor reduction. So this is a very powerful item that's going to make this push much faster. And now Arc Warden, he only has 20 seconds left, but it's all actually too late. And he sees that he actually has to buy back. And he's so late on that, he should have bought back much earlier. But now he's going to buy back. And I'm going to slow this down a little bit here. He's going to try to protect the Ancient, protect his main hero. And the bubbles are so crucial in this fight. Still there's bubble available on his main hero. And they're going to focus down that Death Prophet. That was a major source of damage output. But there's still so much damage coming out of that Desolator here. And he actually still has on his main hero the Mayfield available, but he doesn't quite use it, and now the Ancient explodes and they lose the game. A huge throw. They were so far behind, Nigma were, and they just barely managed to hold on to that melee Rex, but not quite enough sieging power there to actually go through. So this is a game where Arc Warden loses, but honestly this is a game that Arc Warden should have won. It's just not buying back on time there, just some throwing going on from Liquid, and of course Nigma just playing this very cool and really fighting back hard and contesting those important objectives like Roshan. So look at the net worth chart. We saw there was a period of time where Nigma of course were ahead, but then Team Liquid was so far ahead here. They had this huge lead, more than 20k, and they didn't quite manage to close it out. I think it's partly also because of the talent choices. If they had all the Spark Red talents, they could have sieged them more effectively and probably claimed the victory here. But in the end, late game Dota is very crazy, especially now with all those neutral items. And if, for example, they had gotten that Stygian Desolator, they probably would have been able to finish it out, but they didn't. They only had that Ballista, which is like okay on Arc Warden, but it's not really the item that you're looking for in the late game. So hopefully you enjoyed that crazy game, and if you did, please leave me a like and a comment, and if you haven't done so already, join the fold by subscribing and clicking the notification bell, and all is willing, I'll see you next time.